Okay, here's where I was talking where I put cotton balls down in there, and those are for cucumbers. I'm trying to grow the cucumbers in there, and they don't seem to like the water real well, but you can see it's sitting there. When it's sitting in the tube, it's actually down a little ways in the water. It keeps the cotton moist. May have to do my cucumbers differently. I'm not sure how I'm going to get them started, other than I planted some outside. This is the hose that we were following for this first set of tubes, and it comes all the way across. You see, what I did is I used metal posts and just sort of built a frame of a metal post. And we can go back across and see that you can see the hose. I just changed this just a few days ago because when I bought a new pump, it wasn't powerful enough, because I did have the hoses were all coming across this tube before on the top of the greenhouse and then coming down, but it just didn't seem to pump real well for all the tubes. So I pulled them off of there and then just run them as low as I could. Couldn't go any lower because right there's the height of the first tube. You see I have the end of that one sealed off, and there's where the water comes down in there. And if that pump comes on while we're out here, that's got about 10 minutes. I might show you how that's coming out, but it comes into here. This particular tube goes down the length of the greenhouse, comes back over, and there over there is where the strawberries were at that I was at earlier. It comes down. Let me and jump down here below this one. It comes down, and it comes down to the third tube. And those down there are, actually it's funny, there's supposed to be tomatoes down here, and I don't know, for some reason I got kind of silly and put peppers down in there. Maybe it was because I run out of those pots. I don't remember, but you can see that's the tomato plant. Started those all inside the house. Run out of the black pots. They're 20 cents a piece for the smaller ones, and the larger ones I think were 30 cents a piece. So went over to the dollar store and just picked up some plastic cups. And I don't know, let's yeah, there's no roots coming out of the bottom of them, but you can see it's wet. I poked holes in the bottom of them. Those cups don't work real well because they don't set down in there far enough. So I'll probably get smaller cups the next time I do it. So this is the third tube coming across on my first bed, and this line that we're following here now is the drainage. And I have in the end of each one of these tubes that you'll see right here, I have inside of there is a cap, and I drilled holes in it so the water would flow out, but it wouldn't flow out from the bottom of it. I needed to stop the water from flowing directly out. I wanted to sit inside there. There's my chair that I sit on while I'm goofing and playing with my fish and watching them. There's the drainage. It goes back down in there. Right now I have it draining into the tub. I buried that little less than halfway up on the tub, just so I could use gravity to drain the tubes out. I didn't want to have another pump. If we back up this connection here, I have it in my second set of tubes, and this is my lettuce. I actually started those inside the house. There's the roots for the lettuce where they grow down in there, drinking up the water. Some of the things I saw online says that as long as you have some of the roots in water and some not, there you can see the cotton inside there. If all the roots aren't all the way down in the water, they will grow just fine. It's some guy came up with this brilliant idea that as long as you didn't have the whole bottom of the plant in water, as long as you had some of the roots that were getting oxygen, not just water, then they would grow just fine. You can see the water sitting down inside this tube. You have to adjust these as the year goes along, as it gets a little hotter in here. Each one of these tubes, like this one here that we're looking at, I have a cap on the end where it stops the water just about halfway up the tube. It stops the water from coming out and draining down. It lets it sit in there, and that's why you can look down in there and see the water's down in there. But the lettuce is doing pretty good. As you can see, I had some lettuce that was inside the house that I did not plant down into these pots, mostly because I just wanted to have one plant in each pot. Well, I had some extra ones, so I just sewed the cotton balls down in there with some plants that, you know, I guess you would say weren't doing quite as well, but you can see that one down in there. It's doing pretty good. Still cotton down in that one where it's growing. And there you can see I just took those cotton balls and just kind of like just dropped them down in there as long as they stay wet. This one here has a small plant. Don't know if you can see it, but it has a small plant just right over there that I just saw just was coming up in the last few days. There's a plant, a couple down in here. There's another one. Those I just put a couple lettuce seeds and the cotton balls, and I dropped the cotton balls down there. You can see there's small pebbles. That's pea gravel I put down in there just to keep the cotton down in the bottom of the pot. And you can see it sitting there, sitting there in water. So they stay pretty wet. I think maybe for the cucumbers, I think that was a little bit too wet. This is continuing on to the third tube. This is a shot of what a frame for inside the greenhouse. I used this because I had tons and tons of tomato plants in there last year that come up by themselves. So that's just the wood frame that I used. I had small boards, I think they're 1x2s, going across here to tie the tomato plants up because there's like tons and tons. You couldn't even see the ground. They came up by themselves. So that's why you see wood. This little stand here is, once I got the water in the tubes, it kind of like threw it lopsided, so I had to take this one end, and you can see I've tied it up here. I used this one, I tied this one end up so it wouldn't put so much pressure on the chains, and you know, this wasn't really built with the most experienced person, but you can see it works for what it is. It's pretty cheap, just put a few things together. And what I originally was going to do was this one going down through here was all going to be pepper plants, where they were going to come up and you're going to see them growing up there. And I actually picked the peppers off from underneath the plants, and of course I think I'm going to end up probably having to tie those up, I'm not sure. And then I was going to have over on this side, as you can see, I was going to have lettuce, but then I was going to have lettuce on this side. Well, once I got the system built, and I didn't want to try to do, you know, too many of these tubes at the same time. The first one was kind of an afterthought for the third tube. So this one, instead of connecting the third tube, these are just two going across here, and this third one you can see down through here. That's just an extra tube that I had, and you can see it has the water hose just comes in this side. It's just one individual tube. Water comes in here. You can see there's water actually laying down in there. The tomato plants are down through here. There's about 6, 7 of them down through there. They're not doing too bad. These are all, again, all the tomato plants I started from seed inside the house. This dirt here that you can see where this like egg carton setting, and then if you can see real well, but this is the dirt that was already in here for the greenhouse. And the bed was full of tomato plants last year, and I think because of some of the water that leaks out when I run the pump too long, it started some more. I think those are tomato plants that are now growing in the dirt. I'm going to let them grow. Maybe when they get a little bit bigger, maybe I'll switch them over to just the aquaponics system. I don't know. This dirt here, you can see those are onions that are growing there. I had along this wall over here, I had onions, but because my roof leaked, it's just plastic up there. My roof leaked, it kept flooding everything, so I took that thing completely out. But I threw the dirt over here, and those onions are still onions. They're fine. I ate some of them not too long ago. They're still green. You can see there's some dead parts there, some dead ones, and they froze over the winter, but some of them for some reason just keeps on percolating. So that's the second bed. It's got 3 tubes there. These are the tubes I was walking down earlier, the drainage tubes that goes into the fish tank. This one tube here, this big one coming here, we'll follow that one back, and you'll see it goes, it's a drainage for the two tubs that I have here. I'll go back to the first tub. As we go up, we can see those potatoes sitting there just because I didn't know what else to do with them. They were extra. But I actually planted this tub with seed potatoes is what they were. I mean, I know the potatoes are potatoes. As you can see, there's eyes on them. They've been just kind of sitting around, didn't really do anything with them, but half the bag of potatoes, if I dug down into this gravel, you can see there's potatoes. I cut them up. We used to plant potatoes when we were little kids on the farm, and I really didn't know exactly, how to cut them back then, I'm sure, but it says as long as there's an eye on each one. I don't know if I don't think they're rotting down in there because they stay wet, but I don't know if they'll ever actually grow. But you can see there's right there and right over there. I took not only threw the tomatoes or potatoes down there after I cut them and made sure there's an eye on each piece. I threw a handful of carrot seeds down in there. I want to see if I can grow some carrots. I grew them last year in the garden, but they were pretty, I'd say, miserable. They were small little dinky things, and they just really too hard to deal with the little things, so I thought I'd try to grow some carrots in these pots. This thing here is called a bell siphon. This outside rim is just to keep the rocks out from the siphon itself, but I can lift this up and you can look down in there. See a few rocks that fell down in there while I was goofing around with it yesterday, but that tube there in the middle, once the water comes up, water comes through here from the tank, and once the water comes into here, the pump just came on. The water comes up, and when it fills up to the top of this tube, it comes down in there, and once it's going fast enough or high enough, there's the water coming, gets up the top, it puts a suction on it and sucks the water out all the way down to the bottom of that tube. So this tub's going to fill up, it'll get above the rocks. You can see the water will come up, and then the water, as it's coming up, it's allowed to go into this tube through these holes. But what happens is once you set this on here and the water gets up to the top of that tube in there and starts siphoning out, it will actually pull the water out of this tub where it'll be down maybe about that much, whatever the height of those holes are. That's top hole there. That's the depth of the water when it gets done sucking the water back out. We might be able to get to see this because I've got the water running on these. There, I keep goofing with it and just adjusting it a little bit. Once the water gets up to the top of those tubes, and you can see this one's the same way, it starts running down this tube and goes into the tank, and you can see it draining back into the tank. That's going slow. Pretty soon, because I've got it running I think a little too fast, but I was trying to circulate more water through the fish tank because it got kind of, messed up in there while I've been goofing with it. But there you can see the water going down. You can hear it sucking. Sucks the water out. And if you look down here, you can see that the water is going faster into the tank, which is good because it circulates more water for the fish to get them clean. And you can see the fish in there real nice now. As long as some keeps going, it'll keep doing that and cycles through. There's my second one. I didn't realize it blew the water over the edge of the tank, which there's plenty of water. The fish aren't going to have any problems. I'll probably fix that, shorten it up a little bit, so it doesn't do that again. But that actually took the water out of the second one. These things here are, I think they're called ceramic pebbles or whatever. They're made for aquaponics or hydroponics to plant your plants in. They're real light. I just throwed them on, because it didn't have very many, I threw them on top of pea gravel. And the reason to use those is to make a lighter thing for the plants to grow in. And also these tubs that I've used are just plastic tubs, and I'm sure that this will be the only year that those will make it, because I have pea gravel in the bottom of this one, and makes it pretty heavy. I lift it up, and it's probably a good 25-30 pounds just for this, with just rocks and no water in there. I had to take them out. Here, this one just emptied out again, so it's got this the pump that's down in here. As you can see, this electric line goes up my wall. I had to use an extension cord, which I didn't like using, but what I'm going to do is later on today, and get done goofing around, I'm going to move this. Is my timer, and you can see it says 2:03. I have it running every 2 hours on the even numbers, so it runs 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. It goes through all through the night like that, and it runs for 5 minutes, pumping the water through all the tubes. At 2:05, so it runs for 5 minutes. At 2:05, it'll shut off, and the water that's in the hoses. This one in particular keeps going to these tubs, and this one, if you're sitting out here, you'll hear it running back in to the fish tank, which I don't see that's the problem either. It doesn't matter if it cycles back through there. It just goes back down into the tub. Pretty much when this pump runs, that drain there keeps running the whole time, and all it's doing is just the water that's being pumped in here. You can see it's probably, if you measure the amount of water coming out of this tube and this one over here, it's probably about the same as that's running down there, because it stays real close to the top. And this one here is probably going to drain out again. Before it was 2:04 now, it's probably going to drain out again. I need to figure out, maybe make those where there's either more of this ceramic stuff in here for the plants, because I also throw a handful of plant seeds in here so you can hear it draining out as the water's going down. It's a pretty neat invention. I looked online and did that. You know, it's really made for bigger aquaponics or hydroponic things. There you can see the water is shut off now. This one just drained out. You've still got water going down into the tank, which is good. I don't have no aeration in the system at all, because the water drains back in from this one and hits the top of the water. I figured that was enough for the fish. I did notice that when I burnt my pump up the other day, before I put a new one in there, I noticed the fish were like gasping for air, so I went ahead and ran some more water through the system. I used a flower pot water and just dumped water in through the system so it would give them a little air. It seemed to have helped. They come up to me sometimes for food now, which they didn't when I first got them. You can see there's again the heater that's down in there. This little basket here is actually made for a coffee pot. And I put it in there because when I first started the system, I had still some plastic shavings, some of the pipes, plastic shavings that got ran into the system, which I just wasn't careful enough, I guess, with. And so I put that on there to catch those plastic shavings, and since it worked so well, I just left it on there. These little plants here, just tomato plants, I started inside the house. This one I almost destroyed transplanting it. Started some of them in dirt, some of them in cotton. Didn't seem to really matter. What I originally was doing with my other pump was I was pumping the water through this filter. It worked real good until I tried to get it working a little bit better and sort of burn up my pump, melted the pumping part of it. You're supposed to put oil in through it, but you can't do that with fish. I had just a barrel that I had water in there, but now that I have a new pump, I have to figure out how to get the water out there, because the pump that I'm using is submersible, and this just has a small hole. Pump won't fit down in there. I put a little card table out here that some woman gave me. I went and got some stuff off her driveway, and got a little card table here. Brought another table in here. This was another pumping system. That was the plastic container I was using originally. Just a little pump I bought at Harbor Freight that just really doesn't seem to do anything. These are those little pellets. I have some of those left over. Some tomato plants I haven't transplanted yet. Those are the ones I started in dirt. There's the peppers I started in dirt. There's some tomatoes. Transplanted those into just pea gravel. Like I say, the pea gravel ends up being too heavy when you do too much more with it than just put them in little pots. This was a hole where I was originally going to put my tank, but because my greenhouse slopes a little bit, I decided instead of putting it up here, even after I got the hole dug, I went ahead and put it over there because you know, draining downhill was a little bit easier than draining uphill, I figured out. This, I'm going to show this. So this is pretty neat. You can see the black tape around there. That's actually plumbing tape. I forget exactly what they call it. I can go over here and get a picture of it if you ever want to fix something so it doesn't leak. It seems to work really well. It's stretch and seal. It says it's something like electrical tape, but with that part being Spanish underneath there. But it doesn't leave any sticky stuff on it. Just wrapped it around each one of the connections. Seems to work real well. If you don't, you know, if you're not real careful, you end up with a little bit of drip, but then you can wrap it again, and then I haven't had any real problems. My biggest problem at this point is if I'm out here goofing with it and playing with the pump and trying to get the timing a little bit better, it overflows some of them, and that's why I got tomato plants down here. Just now, over the last few days, here's a pallet that I put up here. I did just have these racks here just sitting in the dirt, but I tried to figure out how to build something, and I came across a house that had these pallets in their trash, so I asked if I could have them. He gave them to me, so they work real well. And you can see these are the drains, and there's little pumps. Fill siphons are pretty cool. You just figure out how deep you want the water to stay, and your second measurement is how high do you want the water to go, which right now my water goes a little bit too high. I don't see any reason for the water to ever be over top of these gravels, but it seems to work real well. So I've got a couple things there, and those potatoes, like I say, those are just, I just threw those in there because it rained inside my greenhouse the other day, and the bag got wet, so I just threw the bag out. But that's pretty much it for my greenhouse. It got down to about 34 last night in the middle of the night. I got up and looked at the thermometer, and everything looks like it survived pretty well. I don't know what the temperature is in here now, but it's kind of hot. I've been in here goofing around for about 10 minutes or so. You can see I have electric that goes to that pole right there. You can have a breaker bar comes in through the wall right there. And then there's the breaker bar. I'm going to move all of this stuff over close to the pump so I don't have to have an extension cord, because that really bothers me that there's an extra extension cord. There's some of the pellets that I have left over. And go over here and look at my strawberry plants. But I didn't cover them over, didn't do anything to them. They're doing real well. As you can see, they're green. This is where I dug up some of the plants from that I put inside the greenhouse, and then other ones I used were, I have 6 of them that I bought. I was scared. I wanted to make sure that I had some plants that were going to grow in there. These are my berry plants. I got a couple tubivores laying down there. I'm going to be able to frame over top of this so the birds don't get in it. There's my water barrels, completely full. I bought a couple new ones not too long ago because with doing this aquaponics, I was afraid I was going to run out of water, so I bought a couple more tanks, and that's why there's one sitting in there. Here's my dog goofing around in the yard.